State Attorney Melissa Nelson spoke out about an hour ago. Let's go live now to Shelby Danielson and hear more from her as well. Shelby?
Well, Jeannie, first of all, this case, as we know, was so emotional and it has reached so far. We saw people internationally commenting on this case, watching our live feed. We know it impacted this community, but it also really impacted those jurors. They ultimately came to this decision of a death penalty. We know that many of them were sobbing at the end of this in court. Cherish Periwinkle's mom was sobbing in court, but also the prosecution, State Attorney Melissa Nelson, they said that they took this hard. They got a little choked up at the end of it when we were talking to them. They said that they are changed by this. Thinking about the final moments of Cherish's life when she was killed, she said it doesn't get any worse than that.
And we showed a picture, a living picture of Cherish that was shown in jury selection. And then to contrast that with what Donald Smith had done to her. Pictures of how she was found, pictures of what he did to her, to remind them of the horrible things that she had to endure during the course of this crime. And I think it was important. This week we heard a lot about Donald Smith. We had to refocus the jury on why we were really here. We were here for the victim, and we had to remind them of that fact.
Life in prison was not an appropriate penalty for this crime. And if not for this murder, then for what? This was as bad as it gets. He kidnapped a little girl from her mother. He used deception. You heard all of the facts. He raped her, sodomized her. And I can only imagine, we can only imagine the fear that she must have felt in the last hours of her life. It's horrific. So life was never a sentence we were going to consider in this case.
Now, I want you to take a look at this timeline on your screen right now. You can see in 1992, Donald Smith was arrested for attempted kidnapping. We heard from that former victim earlier this week. After 5 years in prison, he was designated a dangerous sex predator, confined to another 3 years, but he was released in 2002. In 2009, he was arrested after making obscene phone calls and impersonating a DCF worker to a young child. And in 2013, we know he raped and murdered Cherish Periwinkle. It was many of those red flags that the prosecutors talked about today, and that's why they said this repeated history of being in and out of jail is why they needed to put an end to it today. They said he never should have been released from jail back in 2002 in the first place, and they hope that today they did get justice for Cherish and her family. Reporting live at the courthouse, Shelby Danielson, First Coast News, on your side.
Shelby, thank you.
And our team coverage continues with Ken Amaro. And Ken, you spoke with the former JSO officer who found Cherish Periwinkle's body. What did he have to say about the jury's decision?
That's correct, Anthony. He, of course, felt that death is the right verdict in this case. In fact, retired JSO officer Charlie Wilkie is the one who discovered the Cherish body in the creek behind Highlands Baptist Church. And he said he stood there and he cried because she reminded him of his daughter, who was 2 years younger. She was wearing the same dress that his daughter wore. And in fact, today, Melissa Nelson, our state prosecutor, said she too cried over this issue because when she saw the images, the pictures reminded her of her daughter. And she said this has been an emotional ride for both of them. And this is what she had to say today after the verdict.
He and I actually cried together during pretrial. I mean, he's been a law enforcement officer his entire career, and this case impacted him such that this many years later, preparing for his testimony.
Just in my mind's eye and what I've been through, I want that closure. I want to know that he's not breathing the same air that we are anymore. I want to know that there's no possibility that he'll ever be able to hurt another human being.
And today, Wilkie feels that closure was given when the jury came back with that unanimous recommendation of death for 61-year-old Donald Smith. Now, Cherish's mom, Rain Periwinkle, she was in the courtroom. She cried and she expressed a sigh of relief. For her, she told supporters from the Justice Coalition that this does indeed bring some closure. Back to you.